President Trump will sit down and talk one-on-one with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy today at the White House, just one day after an hours-long phone call with Russian President Vladimir Putin. Mr. Trump says he and Putin agreed to meet in Budapest in the coming weeks to discuss a way to bring an end to the war in Ukraine. The president was asked about that phone call yesterday in the Oval Office.
And I thought it was a very good phone call. I thought very productive. But I'll be meeting with President Putin, and we'll make a determination. I would say within 2 weeks or so, pretty quick.
And we've got team coverage on this for you this morning. Ramy Inocencio is in our London bureau, but let's begin with Natalie Brand live at the White House. Good morning, Natalie. So help us understand Mr. Trump's strategy in setting up a direct meeting with Putin in Hungary before his one-on-one time with Zelenskyy.
Good morning, Errol. Well, this seemed to be a calculation by Russian President Putin to speak to President Trump, have his ear before this key meeting with Ukraine's President Zelenskyy when, Tomahawk long-range missiles are expected to be on the agenda. That's something Russia does not want Ukraine to get. And remember, Errol, in recent weeks, we've heard President Trump sharpen his language against Putin as he's been frustrated with stalled negotiations and increased attacks on Ukraine. Now, after this phone call yesterday, we're hearing the president signal that he's hopeful for, a new round of talks, saying that he hopes to meet with Putin or is expecting to meet with Putin maybe as soon as 2 weeks from now in Hungary, that his Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, will be meeting with his Russian counterpart sometime very soon as next week. And recall, we had not too long ago, back in August, that big summit in Alaska between President Trump and Putin. Really not much came out of that. The president, when asked why will this time be different, he believes that meeting set the stage. We also know that talk at the White House and the hope of Zelenskyy is for a direct meeting between Putin and Zelenskyy. President Trump saying that because the two have such a terrible relationship, that may not be possible. That might be tough, but there would be these separate but equal talks. One other thing to note, Errol, is yesterday over on Capitol Hill, the Senate Majority Leader John Thune brought up the sanctions bill regarding Russia and said now might be the time to move it, that he would like to see it move and get a vote on the Senate floor. The president, when asked about that, said he was going to be speaking to the Republican leaders over on Capitol Hill, that it would be his option, and the timing may not be perfect just yet. Errol.
Very interesting. Natalie, thank you. For more on this, let's jump to CBS News foreign correspondent Ramy Inocencio in our London bureau. Good morning, Ramy. We heard Natalie there mention long-range missiles. What specifically is Ukraine's president asking for and trying to get out of this visit to Washington?
Right, Errol, good morning. And yes, this is U.S. aerial hardware, not just for defense, but also for offense. And this is expected to include things like short and long-range missiles, potentially fighter jets as well, American detection systems so they can wean themselves off Soviet systems. And then there's discussion about the production of drones. Now, Volodymyr Zelenskyy already met representatives from Lockheed Martin and Raytheon in the United States. To see him there shaking hands, beaming a smile, and his X account was pretty busy last night, showing that. Lockheed Martin, for example, makes F-16 fighter jets. Lockheed and Raytheon together make the parts for Patriot missile systems to shoot down Russian missiles. And then Raytheon specifically, as Natalie was talking about, makes Tomahawks for those long-range offensive capabilities that really could hit Moscow. At this point, though, it appears Trump is walking back that possibility after his call with Putin. But Zelenskyy put out a post on X specifically about that call, saying that Putin is no braver than Hamas or any other terrorist. The language of strength will work against Russia best, and that he can see that Moscow is rushing to talk about dialogue when he hears about Tomahawks there. At the same time, Zelenskyy was in Washington, though. Russia kept up its attacks on Ukraine overnight. Zelenskyy himself said that his hometown of Kryvyi Rih was hit. People we saw shopping in the dark for supplies. Russia's ramping up of its attacks on Ukraine's energy grid continuing on here. On X, Zelenskyy also brought that up, saying, in fact, not a single night really in recent weeks has passed without strikes. Most of them are infrastructure against the energy sector. And, you know, just yesterday we were talking about how 8 regions across Ukraine were hit. And earlier this week, 30,000 people lost energy. Last week, about 1 million people lost power. So again, this is the 4th winter that we're going into since Russia invaded Ukraine, that Ukraine is trying to figure out its energy systems.
It's an important reminder that that war rages on every day. And just in our last few moments, Ramy, why meet Putin in Budapest for President Trump?
Sure. First, it was Alaska, right? 2 months ago, rather. Now, Hungary. Viktor Orban, the prime minister, basically has pretty good ties to both Trump and Putin. So that's probably one thing, a personal thing there. Hungary is seen as one of the most Russia-friendly NATO nations, really, if not the most. For Trump, Orban backed him for president in 2016 and 2024. And also for Putin, Hungary has signaled he wouldn't be arrested on its soil because, remember, he still faces that arrest warrant from the ICC.
All right, Ramy, with important updates from London. Ramy, thanks.